Ladies and gentlemen, Myth Vision Podcast, your host, Derek Lambert. We're going to go deep today. Super excited. Just for those who are tuning in, the title is quite aggressive sounding, right? Well, obviously, it's not intended to be aggressive in that sense, but our friend Armin said, look, man, title it this. What do you think? I said, why not? I'm hosting him. So he has a lot he wants to unpack today. And something I've noticed, Myth Vision family, is there's not a single ex-Muslim who understands Islam. None of them. No one. You can't be an ex-anything and understand anything. Ex-Christians don't know Christianity. Ex-people who practice Judaism, they don't understand Judaism. Ex-Scientologists don't understand Scientology. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses don't know Jehovah's Witness teaching. They don't understand. No one understands it unless you believe or unless you're their imam. It's almost like it's the wildest thing, but I understand why. It's their football team. They're rooting for their team. So, of course, anyone who roots for another team, your team sucks. No, your team. No, our team. It's all about us, our tribe, our people, our place, our book, our God, our prophet. And so this whole division that constantly happens, this is something I think that we're trying to ideologically fight. So that is the whole point. This isn't with swords and guns and stuff, even though that happens. Here we're using the platform to try and create critical thinking, have people think about their own faith and say, man, what if I'm wrong? So anyway, enough of my ranting. Let's go ahead and have me face Leviathan. So I fear no one. We are Myth Vision. Welcome back to Myth Vision Podcast. I'm getting hyped, man. I've got some books that have come in the mail. The Quest for the Historical Muhammad by Ibn Warwick. And I got a book called Islam, The Honest Truth, What They Don't Tell You. I'm actually going to bring a scalpel. I told you guys I'm not playing around. And the more I keep getting the antagonism, the more it just hypes me up to want to learn more from PhDs in the field. But just because I'm going to bring PhDs on doesn't mean I'm going to stop bringing ex-Muslims on. I find people that I have a common story to, and I want to know why they had the same experience I did. You're talking to an ex-Christian. You're talking to someone who took it so serious, who believed the second coming of Jesus was coming soon, the end was about to happen, all of this was going to hell in a handbasket. My family, half of them were going to hell, and I no longer believe all that. Well, guess what? The guest I've been bringing on, we have something in common. And if you're watching this and you don't agree, maybe take some notes. Disagree. Criticize. I don't care. Either way, Armin Navabi, welcome to Myth Vision, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you joining me, man. I'm super excited to hear where you're coming from. Why did you want that title? Let's address the elephant in the room. Why did you think that was a good title?
Because I'm trying to convince more people that this is not aggressive in any way at all, okay? This is, in fact, one thing I say all the time is the best way to fight Islam is to befriend Muslims, right? A lot of people associate, when you say fighting Islam, as in you're trying to be hostile to a certain group of people. Like, how do you fight Islam? I was like, what's the best way to fight Islam? The best way to fight Islam is to reach out to the people who believe in it. Because what are you trying to do? Like, a lot of people who seem to be on our side, they're not on our side at all. They're like just hate groups of people. And then when they find things in Islam they don't like, they go and repeat them, not because they're maybe hoping to make people think. They just don't like a group of people, and they think like, this is how I annoy them. This is how I annoy these people. I'm just going to keep, oh, you don't like me criticizing religion? Well, let me do it so I could watch you be upset, because I'm sadistic and I get enjoyment out of that, right? But if you were actually interested in fighting Islam, if you're actually interested in that, then you wouldn't want to annoy people. You would actually want to reach out to them and convince them. How do you convince people out of their beliefs, right? You don't convince them by making enemies out of them. you convince them by making friends out of them, right? So again, I'm not one of those people that thinks like you should hold back, right? There are different tools that we have for different goals, and I could get to talk about when we actually do go and become like aggressive with our tone and why we get aggressive there. That's not for changing people's opinions. That's a different goal. When we have like when freedom of speech, freedom of expression is being challenged, then we might actually go cross some red lines just to make sure that those red lines don't get very well defined, right? Or like don't become those red lines don't turn into walls. That's a different tool for a different goal. But when it comes to actually changing people's opinions, the best way is to not make enemies out of them and befriend. You know, if you want to change people's opinions, you have to first try to see how to lower their guard, right? So to lower their guard, you have to first make them understand that you don't have anything against them personally. This is just you just have a different opinion, right? So you have to reduce, you have to try to make it so that they could understand that different conclusions and different opinions and not agreeing on things shouldn't be an excuse for hatred, right? Friendship should not be conditional on agreement. Okay, so
how
you
can
come up with this.
I have to ask you though, how can I befriend Muslims and be critical of their religion when they themselves are identifying their being as their religion? It's like they are coming at me already right out the gate, and I just started doing this stuff as though I'm attacking them because I'm critical of their religion. Not all. I don't want to paint everybody, but it's like, how can you be critical of their faith, their religion, their prophet, and them not hate you? They're so I don't know how you get what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, so this is like a very clever tactic, and it's not by design. It's just survived because it works. Ideas that cannot be defended ideologically, or if they cannot be forced by a theocracy, like if you're not living under a theocracy, or if your ideas don't make sense or they don't have any evidence for them, one clever tactic is to make those beliefs people's identities, right? And again, this is not like some geniuses coming up with plans like this. It's because it works, it survives. It's kind of like survival of the memes rather than survival of the genes, right? So by making someone's identity their beliefs, then attacking those beliefs, doesn't just become a mere disagreement. It will become attacking them personally, right? And that will become then you're now creating an army of people who are defending your beliefs without any logical reasons to be able to defend them, just because they will associate you questioning their beliefs with a personal attack on them, right? So you have to figure out a way on how to separate people's identities from their beliefs and then attack it after, right? Because if you attack it before you do that, you come off as personally attacking them, right? That is really hard to do, but to be able to do that, you have to, one easier way to, one thing that makes it easier is, instead of convincing them that they should feel like that, try to invite them to understand that that's how you feel, right? And don't even introduce it as something that it has to, the way you feel and the way you look at it, don't introduce it as the way it has to be. Introduce it as, can you first understand where I'm coming at? Like understand, like, I understand from your perspective, if I criticize or if I attack your ideology, you might see it as an attack on you,
right?
And I'm right now, I'm not arguing that that's not justified. Let's say that's justified. Let's say that makes sense.
I felt that way as a Christian, by the way. I felt attacked when people attacked Jesus or talked bad about the Bible or were critical. I felt personally attacked, and I felt like I had to defend it. But yes, I get where you're going, and I appreciate this.
Right. So like you tell them that, like, you don't try to convince them that that's wrong. Okay. We're not there yet. Like, we're taking baby steps. Okay. What I try to convince them is, like, can you see from my perspective, I'm not doing that. Right. So you might, even if this is coming off as an attack on you, that was not the intention. Right. Like, maybe you think like the intention, well, even if that's not the intention, that's how I'm perceiving it. Okay, fine. You're perceiving it like that. But can we first acknowledge the intention was merely me showing you my disagreements with your ideology, not me personally attacking you, right? I am me attacking your ideology, in my eyes, at least, maybe in your eyes, is an attack on you. But can you acknowledge that in my eyes, that was not an attack on you? So it was me attacking Islam. In my eyes, it's not an attack on Muslims. Can we acknowledge that maybe, at least maybe, even a smaller baby step, maybe my intentions, it's possible that my intentions is not an attack on you or an entire group of people. Like, that's a very small baby step that I try to see if I could get an acknowledgement for. If I can't get that acknowledgement, I come up with an example. Do you want to hear my example? I think, and this example has worked a lot, right? I come up with this example of this Muslim woman who wants to fight atheism. Okay, she really hates atheism with passion. But do you know why she hates atheism? Because she loves atheists, and she is worried for them. This Muslim woman, she thinks that atheists will go to hell, and she wants to save them. Okay, so she wants to fight atheism, not because she hates atheists, but because she loves atheists and she wants them not to burn in hell. I asked him, is it possible? Is this conceivable? Like, can you conceive of a Muslim woman who hates atheism because she loves atheists? Is that possible? And if you think that is possible, then why is it possible for somebody to hate atheism because she cares for atheists, but not possible for somebody to hate Islam, maybe because they care for Muslim and they're worried about, they think Islam makes Muslim lives worse. I'm not saying that that's correct. Like, we're not saying that maybe Islam is good for Muslims. Maybe Islam is good for the entire planet. But let's say from my wrong perspective that Islam is bad for the planet, Islam is bad for Muslims, right? Yeah. From my wrong perspective, if I think that, if I have that wrong belief according to you, then with my wrong premises, could I not conceivably come to the conclusion that fighting Islam is the best thing for Muslims? You don't have to agree that that's the right conclusion, but is it possible that my intentions in fighting Islam is not because I hate Muslim? I actually care for Muslims and I care for humanity and I have good intentions. Like, can we acknowledge that is possible? So that's an example I tried to use to see if that works.
Just
that usually works.
So the chat knows there's only 82 people here right now, but we have one Muslim in the chat. I know the Super Destroyer, me and him have been chatting back and forth this morning. If you would like to, Super Destroyer, pop your head in here. We are inviting Muslims to join the conversation one at a time, so you understand we're not bigots, we're not anti-Muslim people, but it does seem that no matter who you bring on, no matter what, there's always a problem. Like, for example, he already is saying you're an ex-Shia, however, and he said this guy is a Shia, an ignorant one at that, right? Of course, already saying you don't know anything. And this is what I've been dealing with in the chat, unless you are a practicing Muslim, and even then, let's suppose they're Sunni, they're going to look at you like you're ignorant anyway. There's a reason there were civil wars within, the Muslim faith going all the way back. They just can't see eye to eye on so many different levels. But I'd be happy to invite any Muslims on. So in the meantime, here is the StreamYard link for Muslims that just would love to come on and chat. I'd like to ask you a little bit about your personal story, because I've never had you on this channel, and I want to know what happened to you. How devout were you as a Muslim? What happened that started to make you wake up? Because it's usually not like, oh, I had a bad pizza and now I've woke up and here I am. I see it overnight.
That's actually my story. I had a bad pizza. I'm just kidding. But go, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, just tell us briefly. And Kent's down in the lounge. Make sure you're a Muslim, though. I don't want anyone who is not a Muslim to join the chat today. This is purely for Muslims that are currently Muslims that are going to join. So please tell us about yourself.
You're just being anti-atheist bigot by not letting. Anyways, I'm kidding. So I grew up in a very, very liberal family in a very Islamic country. So my Islamic teaching was mostly done by my school rather than my parents. And for a very long time, I grew up in a household that didn't take Islam seriously at all. The only time we saw inside of a mosque was when somebody was getting married or somebody died. But I, based on my exposure to school, I learned about the concept of, I'm going to try to give you the quick version of this because this could go on for a while. Okay.
Yeah.
So I, from a very young age, I was obsessed with the idea of hell, and I couldn't understand why everybody seems to believe in hell and nobody takes it seriously. Like, I was like, what the hell? Like we are literally, what is it? Like everybody's telling me that this place is real and we could potentially end up there and burn in there for thousands and thousands of years and potentially for eternity. And nobody seems to be worrying about potentially ending there. Like I remember as a kid, I like lit on a match and I put it on my skin just to see how much burning hurts. And then I was imagining that all over my body. And for years, I'm like, there's no way anybody could tolerate that, right? So I was trying to figure out, like, how is this possible that this place exists, and how could I make sure that I never end up there? So one thing I learned in school was that, in Islam, suicide is a sin, right? However, one thing else that I learned separately from this is that there's no sin for children. Children don't sin. Like, unlike Christianity, when you're born with original sin, it wasn't compared to original sin when we were kids, but now I'm comparing it for you to understand. But in Islam, you're born pure, sinless, all right? Only as an adult you start sinning after you hit the age of reason. And again, different Islamic schools of thought tell you what this age of reason is. Some of them have a specific age for it, some of them don't. But what we were told in school, and I know like some Sunnis are going to say in this live chat, like, this is not a true Islam, blah. Yes, okay, this is what we were told in school, okay? In our school, we were told that the age of reason for girls is 9, and for boys is 15, okay? Same as the ages of marriage. And so I recognize that, wait, so there is no sinning before age 15? Like, apparently you have 2 angels around your shoulders, and one of them is like writing your good deeds, and the other one is writing your bad deeds, and they don't record anything until you hit the age of reason, okay? So if your sheets are both completely empty before age 15 for boys. So I was like, wait, what if I commit suicide before age 15? I mean, suicide is a sin and it gets you into hell for sure, right? But there is no sin before age 15. So if I commit suicide before age 15, where do I go, right? If I'm sinless, there's only one place to go. I'm not to go in heaven. So I asked my religious teacher at school, like, what if I kill myself before age 15? I was like, where do I go? He said, you go to heaven. I was like, well, why don't I just kill myself and make sure I go to heaven? Why would I like gamble with like the potential of going to hell? Like, this is an obvious loophole in the system. Like, this is a game that if I lose, I'm gonna like the consequences are so high, nobody would stick around. Like, nobody with the right mind will stick around to see if they're gonna win the prize or not. I'm like, I'm out. I'm gonna go to heaven for sure. So I jumped out of the window of my school, right? I jumped out of the window. I broke both my legs. I broke my left arm and I broke my back. Well, I didn't break my back, fractured my back. I was in a wheelchair for like 7 months and in my bed in my wheelchair. And the only reason why I didn't try it again is because I saw what it did to my parents, like, because it devastated them, right? And honestly, I still think if given those premises, my logic is still solid. The problem was not my logic. I think, like, I couldn't understand why more people don't do this. The premises were faulty, but the logic was fine. If you have applied good logic to faulty premises, you're going to get a really bad conclusion. This is actually the problem with religion. The problem with religion is that you're starting with bad premises. No matter what good of an argument or logic you apply to bad premises, you're going to get some really crazy conclusions, right? Mm-hmm. So this is why I'm fundamentally against faith and revelation and religion as a whole. Not like people like, oh, let's hope people come up with a less harmful religion. No, it's the root of the problem is faith, and the root of the problem is the methodology of how people come up with the conclusions, not the arguments that they add to the premises that they have. If you have bad premises, you can't really lead people to better conclusions with good arguments, because it's rotten to the core.
Wow. Well said. I'm sorry you had to go through that in your head as a young man or young kid. I went through similar tortures in my own mind. Read a book called The Divine Revelation of Hell, where this woman says she was actually taken out of her body while asleep, and Jesus showed her hell. And oh my God, the most horrific images in your mind as a young kid, picturing this place and what, the way she described it. But it doesn't matter how you paint it. God created this place. What the hell did he do creating this place to begin with? As according to the myth, the lore of all these religions, like, what is he doing making these places? It's ridiculous to me. But anywho, I
forgot to ask how that led to me being ex-Muslim. You asked me a question.
What woke you up? And then right. Kent, you were down in there. If you're a Muslim and you wanted to talk, please come back in.
If you dare come. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Yeah.
The title might freak people out, but anyway, yeah. Please tell us what woke you up, Armin.
I'll be nice. I won't bite. So after that, when I actually had reached age 15, I decided to become a serious Muslim, like because I was like, okay, there's no get out of jail free card anymore. Like I have to play the game, or else I'm going to go to hell. So I became a very serious Muslim. I mean, honestly, like I know I grew up in a Shia environment, but I didn't care about the Shia Sunni thing. I was like, I wanted to have like my own personal relationship with Allah. I didn't think like the mullahs or like they were like actually like representing Islam in any, like I was like, I have the Quran, I have God, I don't need like all these people to tell me like I'm gonna have a direct relationship with Allah. That was my Islam at that time. And I was like doing all the things. I was fasting, praying, taking Islam very, very seriously. But this whole concept of hell still bothered me, because even if I end up going to heaven, my mom is going to go to hell, my dad is going to go to hell. A lot of people that I saw on TV, like every single in Iran, like the second religion after Islam was soccer. Well, actually now it's the first religion. And I always like watch soccer. These European football players that everybody's used to watch and worship. Like they're all going to go to hell. Do people know that they're all going to go to hell? They're not Muslim. Are they going to go to hell forever? Like, is anybody worried about them? Like, why is nobody worried about them? Like, this is what I was thinking, right? But I was like, this doesn't make sense. Do these people actually deserve to go to hell forever? Like, what do they do that makes them deserving of go to hell forever? So I was thinking that as a Muslim, so it always bothered me. It just didn't seem just. So I wanted to study, like, come up with an excuse why these other people are not going to go to hell. So I was like, started studying. I decided to start studying other religions to maybe find a way that maybe these other religions are kind of like Islam-ish, like Islam-light or something, right? Maybe they're like Muslim, kind of Muslim, right? So I tried to start. I decided to go and research other religions, and I started with the history of religion. And when I started studying the history of religion, things started looking very, very like, this is looking very much man-made. Like when I started doubting, I didn't meet any atheists. I didn't know any atheists. I just studied the history of religion. And the more I was studying the history of religion, the more it seemed like this is just seems too much, this too convenient. It seems too political. It just seems very much man-made, right? And that, alongside with the study of like biology in school, it's just eventually turned me into a full-on atheist by age 18. I told
guru though, yeah. I get it. It took me some time too. We do have a person in the chat I do want to bring on. I think this will be interesting. So Kent is your name. Welcome to Myth Vision. I appreciate you joining.
Hi, Kent.
So thank you for having me. I just wanted to talk to this young fellow here for a minute, because I hear he mentioned biology, and of course we know that if you're talking to those biologists, all right, those scientists, I mean, you know pretty quickly that they're probably going to hold to evolution, and of course we know that evolution is the dumbest idea that's ever been perpetrated upon the American people. If you could let me finish, that'd be great. So look, here's a problem. You're looking for God in these other religions, and of course atheism is a religion, and so I think you both know that. But the reality, if you could, I think it's a good time to take this seriously. Okay, I'm here to help. So
it's hard to take that seriously.
Yeah. Well, I expect you to interrupt, because that's what atheists do. Okay. I'm here to whack all atheists. That's how I roll. So look, let me just say this before I go. The thing that you need to do, okay, the most important thing that you need to do is repent, turn to Jesus Christ. Okay, because the reality here is that hell's awaiting. And the path that you're on, whether you're going toward Islam or something like that, that's just a hell's awaiting for you. So I think you guys both need to repent of your sins. Okay, peace out.
Thanks, Kent. Appreciate it.
So can I just make everybody notice there was no arguments, right? So this is what you're dealing with. Like,
well, it was actually a troll. He's joking. Okay. That was a complete joke.
Well, it was a very good troll, because he was representing a lot of the things that I hear very accurately, very well, right? So this is a good troll, because this is like what religious people do a lot, is they just if you're a religious person, this trolling behavior is do the exact opposite. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk to atheists, if you want to say something, right? Try to think like, am I making an argument or am I making a claim? Okay. Because if you're making a claim, then that's just a claim.
Well,
then I usually just wait for okay, that's your claim. How are you going to support it, right? So this
look, it was my friend Dr. Joshua Bowen just teasing us with Kent Hovind.
I know you said this is troll, but I'm just saying
yeah, your point is well taken, because I hear this actually stuff like that from apologists.
Yeah.
We got a couple of people down in the chat. I'm going to bring one of you guys on at a time. I appreciate you joining too. If you are Muslim, please only Muslims. I let my friend Dr. Josh come in because I thought this would just be so funny to see what he says. So
let me just tell you, it's when it comes to trying to be a troll like religious people, you end up acting like a lot of religious people. You know what I mean? Like this is like, so so the problem with like trolling as religious people is like you're trying to come up with the dumbest version of the people that are ideologically against you in a way that is kind of insane, like exaggerating it. But the problem is that you can't exaggerate that, because this does represent 90% of what you hear. So how exactly are you going to exaggerate?
Right.
This is
it's amazing. You know Kent Hovind, right? The Young Earth Creationist Christian. Okay. He's just imitating that guy. Welcome, Mr. Delicious. I hope I'm saying that right. Welcome to Myth Vision Podcast. Are you a Muslim? First question.
I'm a Christian.
You're a Christian. I wanted Muslims, man. So look, you got to make it quick. I got to get Muslims on here mainly, but please. Make your comment, and then I got to let you go because I want to make sure that we have Muslims.
Problem.
Okay.
No problem. I'm just going to give you two arguments that prove that Jesus is God and that you're submitted to him. Because if I can show that you're submitted to him, then he's God,
something
right?
serious, friend.
All right, perfect. First proposition, the God of the Hebrews makes exclusive claims to the 7-day cycle. Second proposition, the God of the Hebrews prophesied the universal application of the 7-day cycle as a sign of his authority over all nations. So we can see the last nation to be submitted to the 7-day cycle was in the 1940s, the USSR. So by that, the kingdom of Jesus Christ was established on earth, and you're all subject to his will, the power of his word. So how would you guys engage with that?
Wait, what's the argument again? So there was a prediction.
First is the authorship. He makes exclusive claims to the 7-day cycle. Second proposition, he predicted the universal application of the 7-day cycle as a sign of his authority over all nations. And by that, he proves he's God.
Wait, so sorry if I misunderstand this. You're trying to
and
prove
then Dr. Joshua, I did that on his show a couple of days ago. I'm doing a video on that soon, Dr. Joshua. Thank you for the information you provided. So go ahead.
First of all, let me just, before I address this, because is this like a serious, this is a serious argument? Like we're not dealing with trolls?
Well, is there one of my proposition that you don't think is serious? Do you keep a 7-day cycle?
Well, I'm trying to first understand what you're saying. Okay, so when you say he, you're talking. When you say authorship, you're saying God wrote the Bible.
I'm saying the people who testify that it was inspired by him wrote that he is the author of the 7-day cycle, and there's nobody else that makes claims to it. Can you give me an example of somebody that makes claims to a 7-day cycle before the Hebrews?
Your God is in the premise. Your God is in the conclusion and in the premises of your argument.
If you want to remove the God of the Hebrews part, put the Hebrews claim that their God makes exclusive. This is semantics. Remove God of the Hebrews.
We're going to wrap this up here soon because this is pertaining to Muslims. But if you want to come on at some point in the future and we want to have this engagement,
no problem.
Here's the first thing I would like to say, Armin, because I don't want to.
I'm not trying to dismiss your argument. I just didn't understand it. Like I'm not saying your argument was good or bad. I just had a hard time understanding it. So sorry about that. That's my fault.
No, it's no problem. Just to make it clear, because you guys. I see a lot of people, how you guys engage with the religious people, and a lot of people are fanatics and they don't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. But there's some small minority of people that are actually the real ones, and you are dealing with a real one right now. So I provided you with two arguments that proves Jesus is your Lord. So now you're gonna have to face the reality of
I
that.
need to first understand what you're saying before I could. I didn't actually understand what you said. So,
let me
Authorship
clarify
is
this. I'll clarify this. We're going to Muslims.
Right.
This is an Islam specific
Right,
show, my
right.
friend, and we will engage at some further time. Okay. Thank
I
you.
just
I
also
appreciate
want
you
to tell
popping
all
in.
religious. I just also want to mention that no, religious people don't need to apologize for the activities of other religious people. Okay, just because somebody belongs to your group, that doesn't mean that you're responsible for their actions. Okay, trust me.
Yeah.
We have a lot of not very nice people on the atheist side as well. Okay, so
Right.
and I don't apologize for their existence. I don't think Christians need to. Nice Christians don't need to apologize for having like bad Christians in their side, and good Muslims don't need to apologize for bad Muslims on their side. You're just only responsible for the things you do and you say. So
Armin, the first thing I would like to say, though, without going too far, because this is a show with you conversating with the guest, and I might occasionally engage, but I don't want this to be like Derek and you are trying to team up or anything like that. But
can you just if you bring any trolls, can you tell me that they're a troll? I don't want to
that was
engage with
on purpose. The initial one was on purpose.
Yeah, but you need to tell me, because I don't want to spend time talking to somebody who I don't know is a
no,
troll.
that guy wasn't a troll, but there's a lot of people in the chat who've said they've seen it before.
The first person, if somebody's a troll, tell me they're a troll, because I'm going to engage it as if it's serious.
Right. Okay. So first things first, I want to say the 7-day cycle, this astronomical cycle that it's exclusive to the Hebrews. That's something right there, big question mark, because where did they get this idea from? Did this only start at the Bible? That would be something, and we could chew on that, but this is not a show about that. I've got 3 people in the chat down below. I'm bringing them on. I don't know. I think that they are authentic, especially Eats Eating, but British Muslim was already in, so let's bring him on. Welcome. I hope you are Muslim, my friend.
Hello. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome to Mythvision.
Oh, fantastic. By the way, I'm a big fan of Armin, actually. I think he's probably one of the best critique. He provides one of the best critiques of Islam out there, in my opinion. But one question I would like to ask is, as atheists, how do you establish a morality as atheists? On what basis do you establish morality?
All right, so I'm going to answer that. Okay, so this is how do I come up with a moral philosophy? This is not an atheist. There is no atheist way of coming up with a moral standard, okay? Because atheism is nothing other than a lack of belief in God, okay? So given that we don't believe in God, we just, most atheists understand, okay, if there is no God, God is not a good way to come up with what's moral and what's not moral. What atheism by itself then doesn't provide you with a good way. Now that you realize that God is not the right way, you have to go and hunt for a good way to come up with a standard, right? So for example, and I will tell you what my standard is. I just wanted to make sure that when I tell you what my standard is, this is not representative of atheism. This is representative of anybody who agrees with the standard, right? So for example, if I, British Muslim, let's say I had got insurance from a company, right? And then my house burned down and I went and asked for money, and then the insurance company didn't pay, and I realized it was a fraud. If you now want to go get insurance from the same company, and I tell you, don't go for this company, it's a fraud. If you come on to me, tell me Armin, well, if this is not a good company to get insurance, then you give me insurance. I might be like, I don't have insurance. I just know that this is not the right way to get insurance. Maybe you go yourself find insurance. But just because somebody is telling you that this is not the right way, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be able to provide you with the right way. They're just telling you that this is a fraud. So there are other ways, but that's a different. So the question of what is the right way is different from the question of atheism. You know what I mean? So lack of belief in God, it by itself doesn't provide you with a moral guide. That's a different question that you need to answer. So in my opinion, utilitarianism is the best way to figure out what is moral and what is not moral. I don't know how much detail you want to get into that, but that's what I think is the most superior method.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. But why do you think that's the best method?
Right. Because you come up with definitions of words based on what words gets you to what definition of words gives you the most, gets you to the goals that you want the most, right? So for example, if you look at the utility of the way you use language and words, it's how do you figure out how which words has the highest utility. First, we have to define a goal, right? So if my goal, and I think many people's goals, okay, is harm reduction. Like we as a social animal enjoy seeing more pleasure in ourselves and others, and also do not like seeing misery in ourselves and others. Like as social animals, we don't like seeing other people miserable. Like we have this desire to increase happiness and reduce misery. Okay, so with the goal of reducing misery and increasing happiness, the definition for morality that helps us get there faster is a definition that considers misery to be a negative and happiness to be a positive, right? So if you define morality in a way that encourages increases of utility, increase of happiness, and discourages increase of misery, if that's your definition of morality, that the codes and structures that you're going to come up with based on that definition of morality eventually is going to lead in more happiness and less misery. So it's based on the goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, that's fine. Just one more question.
I want to say thank you for being a kind caller, by the way. I really appreciate you, British Muslim.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. This is how I'm like with everyone. But do you consider yourself a strict determinist?
Yes.
Okay, so can you, like, so for example, in this country or most countries in the world, like, we have a punishment for murder, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But if those people were already going to kill the person, etc., there's nothing they could have done to change that act.
Right.
Then is it correct to kind of punish people for crimes, etc.?
So we do so that's why it makes sense for us to do punishments for harm reduction rather than revenge, right? So it's hard, like, even though it doesn't make sense for us to get angry at people if we do believe in determinism, we're also predetermined to get angry because we have desire for fairness. You know what I mean? Like, for example, let's say you're a determinist, then why do you, if you see somebody doing something unjust, why do you get angry? Well, because I am determined to get angry. You know what I mean? Like, I am also wired in a way that when they see something unfair, that is the natural reaction that I'm going to have. That's my emotional response to it. However, maybe being aware of determinism makes me have like a milder reaction compared to a time that I didn't. Like, that knowledge does have an impact on me. And I do think, like, when it comes to the justice system, when the reason why we like have a punishment and the reason why we might put people in jail is because we're also predetermined to want to reduce harm, right? So we do these things not because at least I think it shouldn't be because we desire to get a revenge from, like, this is not to satisfy our thirst for revenge, right? We have this desire to do the things that makes a society function properly. So given that these people are also have been wired in a predetermined way to act differently if they lived in a society that there was a punishment for these actions. So, for example, the reason why we're punishing somebody who committed an action is to reduce the motivation from other people to do the same thing, right? So, for example, if you live in a society that you go to jail for theft, then there's a less chance that you're going to commit theft. So we are predetermined to be encouraged to do the things that will predetermine other people to commit less crimes, because we are predetermined to have the desire to live in a society like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all forced to do that. Basically, we're forced to punish them.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Can I just have one final question, if possible?
Ask your question, and then once you ask it, I'm going to go ahead and drop you.
No
finish,
worries.
Armin, and then I've got 3 other guys in the waiting area.
Yeah, no worries. So, I live in the UK, and I come from a Pakistani Muslim background. And one thing I've noticed over the past, I would say, roughly 10, 15 years is increasing number of people leaving Islam in the UK. So do you think this is going to increase, decrease? What do you think will happen?
Well, I think it's going, it seems like it's going to increase, but not just in the UK, but also in Islamic countries. Like, the statistics that we're looking at right now, that it seems like I was extremely optimistic about how many people are leaving Islam, but even what the numbers that are seeing right now is actually better than I even predicted. Like I used to, my predictions, people thought that this was pie in the high, impossible, this is not going to happen. But I don't know if you saw the stats. It seems like Iran is now a Muslim minority country. Have you heard of that? Like if
you want me to bring him back on? I was just.
Oh, I didn't know he left. No.
I dropped him because I was going to have you answer it.
Yeah, I forgot. No, but it seems like it's going to increase much faster than any of us anticipated, the rate of which people are living Islam. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, British Muslim. Next in line was I don't know much. I'm bringing him on, then Eats Eating, then the Standing Caliph. And I appreciate you guys. I don't know much. Welcome back to Myth Vision. I think this is the same gentleman.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
Hey, welcome. Yeah, go ahead and ask, and then keep in mind we got two other guys waiting behind you. So,
I have a quick question. So, do you believe the universe came without God, came into being without God?
I am an atheist. I don't know if you know what that means, but yes.
Yeah. Do you believe the universe came into being without God? Yeah.
Yes, I am an atheist.
Okay. Do you know the quantum physics? You know the quantum level. The particles, they appear and disappear in twos, always in twos, in different places. But then when it comes to our world, the whole energy wave breaks down. And there's a force which brings order to these particles. So, like for example, me and you, we are made from the same particles, but we cannot appear and disappear in two places. But the same particles that we are made of, they can appear and disappear in a quantum level. So what do you know this force? This force, some scientists say that this force is not even part of the universe.
Which force you're referring to? There's four forces in the there's
no,
which
no.
one of the four forces?
There's a different force. The force that brings order to the quantum particles. You know, we are made from the same particles, yeah? You know about the quantum level.
Yeah, so there's two forces that connects the quantum particles together. You're like weak nuclear force and the strong nuclear force. Are you referring to those two forces? There are four forces, right? If I remember this correctly. You have the electromagnetic, you have the weak nuclear, you have the strong nuclear, right?
No,
and you have gravity. So are you referring to
quantum level?
At the quantum level, at the quantum level, the forces that keeps everything together.
None of these forces operating at the quantum level. None of these forces you mentioned operate at the quantum level. None of them.
Yes, they do.
If they do, then how can the particles appear and disappear in two places at the same time? How?
Well, how? Well, that hasn't been answered yet. That hasn't been answered yet. Are you talking about like Higgs boson? Are you talking about the method in which this works hasn't been.
Sorry, can I ask you another question, because I don't think you get my question. I think it's for.
Yeah, I don't get your question.
Scientists, yeah. Okay, sorry, wrong question then.
No, but let me actually address something you're saying. Let's say there's a force that let's say that you're referring to a force that I don't know which one of the forces you're referring to, because the way I learned about quantum physics, there are many different forces, and you're saying that apparently there's a force beyond the four forces that we recognize. Maybe I don't know what you're talking about, but let's say there's a force. Let's say there's a force that keeps the particle, making particles act more like particles rather than a probability formula, right? That you're referring to. Okay, so that force. What makes you think that force is God?
Question?
Hold on. Let Armin finish. I don't know, and then you can respond.
What you refer? What makes you think that? Well, maybe you don't understand.
Go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll let him.
What makes you think that force is God?
All right, I'm muting him. Please go ahead. I don't know.
Because as I said, the scientists, they cannot find this force inside the quantum level, and some of them, they say it might be a force.
That's an appeal to ignorance fallacy. Do you not?
No. Pay
appeal to ignorance first. Okay.
Okay. Wait. The scientists, they say that this force, it can be from outside the universe. Do you understand that? So anything outside the universe is not part of the universe, and it exists out of time and space, and it gives order to this one. So it has intentions.
I don't think you understand quantum physics.
So real quick, guys,
Okay,
just
can
so
I ask
you
another
know,
question? Can I ask another question?
you may. Just 1 second. I want everyone to know this guy right here. His name is Professor Lawrence Krauss. He is a theoretical physicist. I have interviewed him. I have tons of his shows on my Patreon. If you guys are interested in knowing how nothing can produce everything from someone who actually studies this stuff and isn't, is actually a degree in this, that might be something worth checking out on Myth Vision podcast. So
when you say something outside of this universe, what is your definition of universe? Because if you're saying something else is outside of space and time, basically that's the very definition of it not existing. I don't know what you mean by outside of this
Derek,
universe.
please, Derek, can I answer to you? Because I have a quick answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know the guy you just mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah, I like him. You know what he said? He used to say that something comes out of nothing, and then he got in trouble for that because the nothing that he mentioned is not absolute nothing.
I know, you're right. Yeah, I agree.
So he got in trouble for that. So sometimes you have to be careful when they say like
yeah,
nothing.
but he still stands by that absolute nothing is something, but it's not the nothing that you think of as nothing, because there's a certain limitation to what we can know. And based on the fact
none of this proves the existence of God. Okay, this just proves that the whole point of these discussions often is about something that we don't. No, you don't.
I just showed you a little bit, a glimpse. But can I ask another question, please?
No. We have to address. No, we're not going to move to the second part when you're trying to claim credit for nothing, for saying absolutely nothing. Okay, you're saying there's a
2 minutes.
No.
2 minutes.
No.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying. But I don't
maybe you're not explaining it very well. Maybe you don't understand what you're saying.
2 minutes.
No, I want to say something. Can I respond to something, the things that you're saying, please? Okay, if there's any force that if you find anything in science that some scientists don't know where it comes from, what is this? Okay, when it comes to the quantum world, there's so many of that. Like, take your pick. People don't know what dark energy is. The scientists have no idea what dark energy is. Okay, they just know that there's a plenty of energy there, and they have zero explanation for where this is coming from, what the nature of it is, where it comes from. There's so many things that scientists don't know. Okay, so if you want to talk about forces or energies that are out there, or explanations of, let me finish. There's like,
you're wasting time.
I am
saying nothing. You're saying nothing. I'm trying to make points.
I haven't finished. Nothing. I have not finished. You said something. I'm responding. Wait for me to finish. Okay, I'm responding to you.
What?
Okay.
Nothing I said you're responding to.
I am responding. Well, maybe because you're not letting me finish. Maybe that's why I have said nothing. Okay. Maybe if you let me finish. When you keep referring to things that scientists don't know, that's an appeal to ignorance. The fact that there's something that we don't know, the fact that there's certain things in science that hasn't been explained yet, does not prove the existence of God in any way. If you could find forces or energy or whatever that you don't know what the sources of it is, maybe it comes from one universe to another, anything you refer to, these are just things that hasn't been explained. There's no way for you, unless maybe you will do in the next sentence after I finish speaking, you have to show that this is a conscious creator of the universe, not just this is something that scientists can't explain. Can you actually show that these forces that you're referring to is actually a conscious creator of the universe, or else it's not God?
Yeah, wait, can I answer? Pay attention. The force which gives order to the quantum particles has intentions. Energy cannot have intention. It has intentions. The intention and the force, that force is not part of the quantum level, so it must come from outside. And if it comes from outside, and if it has intentions, then it has a mind. Only the mind has intentions and will. So this means that prove what?
Prove to me that it has intentions. For you to prove that it has intentions.
The reason why it has intention is because it brings order. It brings order. Order means intention. The will brings order.
No, it doesn't.
The stone doesn't bring order. What do you mean? The stone doesn't bring order.
Order doesn't mean intention. There's your problem. Order doesn't mean intention.
Order means
intention. Just because you say it, if you just say order that means intention, it doesn't make it so.
So what does it mean?
Do you realize that by repeating something? Order is order, intention is intention. Intention requires consciousness. If you can't prove, you have to before you prove intention. Before you prove intention, you have to prove consciousness.
You're missing the point. This force.
We've got another caller, so wrap it up right here, gentlemen.
If this force is coming out of some other out of space, that
Mhm.
the only
Outer space?
reason why it's coming up into it exists outside the universe. If it's coming inside the universe, and then the only reason why it's coming inside the universe is to bring order to the particles. That means it has intentions. It has clear intention to bring order, emission.
There is no force.
is the-
There is no force that is coming outside of the universe, because there's no such thing as outside of the universe. The universe, by definition, is everything that there is.
Can I ask you one question?
No. Okay, enough. I can't. Sorry, I don't know. I got to drop you. I already said after that I have to, so please don't take offense. I have another person waiting. Real quick, I just want to say the consistent logical thinking that is behind that idea also says the hurricane that happens has intention. There's a reason that the flooding happens. There's a reason the volcano erupts. In antiquity, it was always attached to a deity. Now that things are naturally explained, they always want to push it to something metaphysical beyond really what scientists have comprehension of, and therefore God. So I just want to say, we now know why hurricanes happen. And it's not God hates your homosexuals in California. You know, like I've heard this a ton of times from Christians just saying. So, all right, Eats Eating, welcome to Myth Vision. Welcome again, my friend. And real quick, I just want to say, I don't know much. I see you in the chat. I appreciate you. I had to cut you off, man. So go ahead. Eats Eating. Welcome.
That's okay. Pleased to that you had me back. Do you have any more live chats to deal with before I speak?
No. It's your time with Armin.
Right. Hello, Armin. Happy to speak with you. Just the last caller is it's a very confusing debate in which atheists have to redefine nothing. But generally speaking, all that is a philosophical debate, which the Quran says, there are those who think they have created themselves. So do you think you've created yourselves? So there are some people like you atheists who believe that you created yourselves, which means the atom created itself. And you're quite happy to accept that randomness and
I don't remember creating myself. I think I would have remembered that I did not create myself.
Well, that is what your argument, atheism.
That would be a straw man, my friend. That's definitely not what atheists think. Now,
I've never met anybody that thinks that they made themselves. What does it mean when you made can you explain to me the argument you think atheists are making? You think atheism means that we are making ourselves? Like, what does that even mean?
Matter creating itself from randomness.
Oh, matter.
That's you.
Okay, so
you are matter.
Don't you realize
that you are atoms? I thought
that's
a
very weird. Yeah, but that doesn't.
Yeah, but
okay,
Allah in the Quran.
That's kind of no. Let's address that. Okay, that's a very weird way of referring to me. Okay, I don't refer to the Shakespeare as the alphabet. Hey, go get me the alphabet. What do you mean the alphabet? Give me the alphabet. No, let me finish. Let me finish my thought, please. Okay, I'm referring to what you're saying. Okay, and if you were like, what do you mean the alphabet? Get me the alphabet. I mean the Shakespeare. Give me the Shakespeare. I'm like, well, why are you telling me that it's the alphabet? Well, isn't Shakespeare just like a rearrangement of the alphabet? Like, isn't that just what the Shakespeare is? Like, no. What makes the Shakespeare is not just the mere fact that it's like the alphabet. It's the order in which the alphabet are put together that makes Shakespeare the Shakespeare. So what makes me is not just the mere matter that I'm made of. It's the way matter is organized. It's the shape in which the matter takes that makes me. So it's not just me. It's not just matter. Me is just just like Shakespeare. It's not just the alphabet, right? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it doesn't avoid the premise that if you believe that matter creates itself. So some people, like me, believe there is a necessary being.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that, because when you say matter creates, you're assuming intention. You're assuming consciousness. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Like, by the way, if you say, just let me be clear, I'm just talking about what I think, okay? Like, a lot of people try to speak as if atheists believe in, certain philosophies. Again, there's nothing other than a lack of belief that unites atheists. Like atheists might believe in a lot of woo crap and other nonsensical philosophies that I don't agree with, right? So I'm just talking on behalf of myself, not on behalf of like atheism, right? But when I like in my mind, like if you don't believe in, if you think everything is just matter and energy, right, and laws of nature, that doesn't mean that you believe matter creates itself, because that kind of language is suggesting intentionality. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand your point of view. How I'm just putting forward the Quranic position and the general position in humanity. People either believe they created themselves. No, sorry, I'll get rid of that. People either believe they were made by a necessary being, a process, you might say, of evolution, whatever that we are now here, or the alternative to that. And I'm just giving you the Quranic view, and the alternative view is matter creates itself. But that's not exactly what I called in about. I mean, I accept your position that you don't accept that scenario, but that is what how the Quran puts it. So I'm just saying, generally, if you believe you were made by a necessary being, then you are more inclined towards believing in a god, or being a theist or a deist of some form. If you reject that idea, and I can only the way I'm thinking, I accept that. I accept the Quranic position. You don't.
Right.
So I accept the Quranic position. Either you believe you created yourself, or that someone else believed someone created you. Now you reject that. That's fine. But that is the Quranic view.
Okay.
So
real quick. Let me read this super chat real quick. I think this is. How would you pronounce this, Armin? How would you pronounce the name? Is it Safed Flash?
I have no idea.
I'm trying. I apologize. Thanks for the super chat, though. I think this is a song. Armin, put my Shubahat. Am I saying that right? Shubahat. All around. I can't refute them anymore. It's getting too hard to believe. That long black cube is causing doubt. Feels I'm knocking on Jahannam's door. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. I just want to give a shout out. Huh?
Jahannam means hell.
Yeah. Okay, so what does this mean? What are they? Is this like a song about hell or something? Or
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think it's supposed to be a Muslim who's having doubts because of your last stream about the Kaaba. And hell is, it's a joke. I don't really know. Anyway, that was my. I mean,
thank you.
The last person who called, that was more of a philosophical question that ancient Greeks have been arguing over for thousands of years. It's and I'm saying it will be in a nutshell, the Quran refers to it. Either you believe in God or you don't, and then you can then that is a really philosophical debate, and that can lead you in many directions. However, I want to talk about the previous caller, the one before this, the last one, on the utilitarian view of what's good and morality. Yeah, and I would say that if you take that to its logical conclusion, then the Quran has that approach as well. I would say that the biggest issues, the problems facing humanity at the moment, the harms that you were talking about, what's bad for us is things like alcohol and intoxications, gambling, and even interest. We've had a few in the last 20 years. We had, I think, 2 worldwide financial crashes based on people with speculating on property and interest. Every Friday and Saturday, if you go to the emergency wards,
the world would not be able to function without having interest. Okay, alcohol is a problem, but the way to address it, the way to address alcohol is not the way that the Quran suggests we should do, or Islam. because the Quran mostly speaks about wine anyways. And gambling is also an issue, but also Islam, the solutions are not the best solutions to them is not the way Islam suggests that they are. And also like the problem.
What does Islam say?
Let me finish. Utilitarianism does, from any religious perspective that has an afterlife, completely throws off your calculations, because you shouldn't really concern yourself much about this life anyways if you have eternity to look after. Like if it's dunya versus akhirat, you should be more concerned with akhirat, right? So if with an ideology that includes an entire afterlife, if that afterlife does not exist, then any kind of calculations that you're going to come up with that will increase happiness is going to not be accurate, because you're taking that other life into account. You know what I mean? You're putting that in your calculation of what's in the benefit of humanity, and you're basically including hell and heaven in that calculation. And if hell and heaven doesn't exist, your calculation of what is the most beneficial thing for human being is going to be completely wrong.
You said a lot there, but the Quran does say, don't worry about your disagreements. Like what you're saying and me, let's not disagree. Let's just agree that these are the problems facing humanity.
Real quick, if I can, the problems you brought up: alcohol, taxing, and gambling. Let's talk about those.
No, interest, not taxing.
Interest.
Okay, incest, like family members.
Interest.
Do you know when you play?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand them. Interest,
like
alcohol, and gambling. Okay, these three things. Are these the three?
Islam got that from Judaism, by the way.
I was going to ask, like, are these three topics being brought up because this is what you find in the Quran? Is this why you think these are the three worst things going on right now? Or is it because you're looking around the world and you're saying it's not these other matters, it's because my book says so?
I mean, Islam allows wife beating, Islam allows child marriage, Islam allows sexual slavery, Islam allows torture, Islam allows killing people for apostasy.
You said a lot there. You're saying allows, but who's telling you these
things? Actually, no. Not allows.
Can I ask a question? You've made four accusations. Can I?
I was just correcting myself. I was just correcting myself. It doesn't allow wife beating. It commands wife beating. But go on.
Okay. Well, according to Islam, do you actually beat your wife? Did the Prophet beat his wife? The answer is no. According to Islam, he did not.
He beat Aisha in the chest, according to Hadith.
You are. No Muslim accepts that as a beating at all. It was part of if you're going to accept that hadith, then you have to accept the other hadiths, but you like to pick and choose. You have to accept the other hadiths in which Aisha says the Prophet never hit anybody unless it was in a warfare situation. But you don't want to accept those hadiths. You want to go to one side. You want to pick and choose.
I accept.
You made four
hadith.
Hold on, let Armin speak.
I accept that
four accusations. Can I go through them?
Hold on, you can go through one at a time. First, let him respond, and then you can.
I accept that the hadith has a lot of contradiction. I accept that the Quran has contradiction. So, but the existence of those other hadiths doesn't make the existence of the other it doesn't negate the fact that those other hadiths exist as well, right? But yeah, so I accept both of them.
Okay, look, Armin, you were part of a group called Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. I presume
Secular Jihadists.
Yeah, secular.
The podcast is Thanks for the shout out. Our podcast is called Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. Yes,
and that sounded good to me. But by the way, for Christians and non-Muslims, the word jihadist means a struggle. Don't worry about it too much about suicide bombs. It means a secular struggle for a Muslim enlightenment. It sounded very interesting, but that is not the enlightenment that what you just said. Go beat your wife. Go get a sex slave. That's not an enlightenment. Why don't you just say this hadith here? The Prophet never beat anyone. The Prophet was in the Quran says it. Unless it was in war, the Quran says a true Muslim is one who walks gently on the world. The Prophet said, "Do not enslave."
Can I answer? Can I answer why? You asked
Well,
me
you
a
said
question.
four
Can I answer
things. I
it?
want to go through them. I thought
No,
I'm
but
going
you
to
asked
forget
me a
them.
question. But you answer. Okay, so I'll take a note of answering. You go ahead, and I'll answer you later. Why?
And
Yeah,
and-
once you're done
and the
speaking
issue-
on these four things, I'm going to have Armin talk. And if you interrupt him, I'll just have to mute you because I really do want to give fair time for him to respond to these.
Maybe
Well,
have a
he actually-
notepad so you don't forget what I said. Like maybe like write it down. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
I think I forgot the fourth one. But one of them was slavery. The Prophet at the end of his
Child
life,
marriage. Child marriage was the other one.
add in that as well, but throw it in as well. Okay. The issue of slavery, the Prophet gave up his slaves. If we were true Muslims, we wouldn't have had slaves. The Quran, Islam says, do not enslave the free people. If we follow the Quran, in that we have to free slaves, and not to get slaves from the free people, we would have been the first to have. If we had followed the Prophet, we didn't follow the Prophet. And also the child thing issue, you know that is a controversial issue, and most scholars have set the age for maturity. They have to be physically mature, they have to be mentally mature, and they have to be able to actually give consent. I don't know how it is in Shia Islam, but consent. There are hadiths in which the woman has to give consent. And if you're going to say to me that a 6-year-old, goodness sakes, a 6-year-old who's not even able to pray, their prayers will not be accepted. If you're going to say to me the Prophet married a 6-year-old when she couldn't even if she prayed, her prayers would not be accepted, she would need to give consent. Now you might be talking about some of the schools of thought on this, but there is clear hadith, and if you're part of this Enlightenment movement, you would be saying this hadith shows us that the woman has to give consent. A 6-year-old cannot give consent.
Okay. We're going to pause.
If-
Look, I'm not going 10 minutes where we talk for 10 minutes and then finally let Armin speak. So go ahead, Armin, because I don't want people falling asleep with one person speaking. I want to have engagement here. Go ahead, Armin.
Right. So you say, like, if you're referring to the bad parts, why you're not mentioning these other good parts? We actually do mention them. For example, one thing I mentioned is that Islam is obsessed with taking care of orphans, right? I don't see any issues with taking care of orphans. But the fact that these verses exist that seem to be like okay and not problematic doesn't take away the verses that are problematic, right? So, like, for example, a lot of Muslims say, like, oh, there's a hadith that says that the heaven is under the feet of the mother. So how could a religion like this be anti-woman if it's saying something like that? Well, it says that, but also it has a Quran verse that tells you to beat your wife. I don't know how it's possible to say that and say this at the same time, but it does. Like, just the fact that you have, just the mere fact that you have other hadiths and other verses that seem to be not problematic doesn't wash away that the verses of the hadiths that are problematic. Okay, it doesn't make them disappear. Like, how could this be true if these exist? Well, I don't know. You tell me. It is true. And those other things also do exist. When it comes to the slavery, people keep mentioning about, like, yes, there are hadiths that, oh, it's good to free slaves, okay? But to be able, like, not all of them, right? You get some credits for freeing slaves. We also have hadiths, Muhammad specifically asking you not to free that slave. Like, why did you free that slave? That you shouldn't have freed that slave. Like, do we have hadiths like that as well? We have Muhammad kept slaves. He died still having slaves. He didn't free all his slaves.
That's not true.
It's my turn. It's my turn. Okay?
But that's not true, though.
It is true. Muhammad died still having slaves. Okay?
He did not have slaves when he died.
He did. Okay, right after he died, his family inherited them, right? There are many people that were still slaves when he died.
Maybe in Shia Islam.
Oh my God. Let me speak. Okay. See, I tried to, when you told me to, like, let me go through the points, I was like, okay, I'm going to take notes.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry. You carry on.
I tried to take note. I tried to take notes so that I don't interrupt you. Okay. I know I was struggling with that.
Here's the deal, Armin. I know people get excited, so I went ahead and muted him just to make sure. I'll unmute you in just a second, my friend. Please just let him finish, and then I want to allow him to, be able to say something after too.
Muhammad added to number of the slaves. He didn't, yes, he sometimes encouraged people to free slaves. I'm not going to deny that that was part of the hadith, but he also increase the number of slaves. In war, he captured slaves. There's Quranic verse telling you that it's okay for you to have sex with other people's wives if you capture them as slaves. There's a Quranic verse. This is not even hadith. You don't need to go to the hadith. There's a Quranic verse telling you that if you capture women, like it tells you that you shouldn't have sex with other people's wives unless you capture them as your slaves in war for Allah. So you are, even if they're married, because now you're sex slaves, you could basically you could have sex with them as your slaves. This is a Quranic verse. This is not even hadith, okay? So again, just because Muhammad say like, hey, maybe consider freeing your slaves once in a while, that doesn't mean that slavery was not okayed or encouraged under Islam. It doesn't negate that, okay? So when it comes to you saying, oh, but you have to be like, how could, if Islam, this is the common argument I hear, right? If Islam says that by age 6, your prayers would not be accepted or whatever because you can't consent or you're not mature, how would it allow for you to marry a 6-year-old? I don't know. It does. Okay, so just because you have some other teachings that maybe says like as a 6-year-old your prayers are not accepted or whatever, that doesn't mean that it doesn't allow. There's like hadith after hadith after hadith after hadith, and this is the most authentic hadith in Sunni Islam that constantly confirms that Muhammad married his wife Aisha when she was 6 and had sex with her when she was 9. This is the most authentic hadith, part of the most authentic hadith in Hadith Bukhari and Hadith Muslim. It doesn't get more authentic than Hadith Bukhari and Hadith Muslim in Sunni Islam. So I don't know if you want to throw away Hadith Bukhari and Hadith Muslim, that's 95% of Islamic teaching just out the window right there. Like your Islam wouldn't even be recognizable without Hadith Bukhari and Hadith Muslim.
All right,
okay?
let
me one last thing.
Okay.
Even if you throw away all the hadith and just refer to the Quran itself refers to child marriage. The Quran itself tells you that how to divorce your wives after they had their periods or your wives before they had their periods. It tells you about the nature of divorce from the wives of your wives that haven't had their periods yet. That's Quran recognizing, legitimizing, accepting child marriage. So you don't even have to refer to the hadith to know that child marriage is a thing in Islam. Anyway,
thank you, Armin. Appreciate it. All right, go ahead. Eating, please. Speak your mind.
Well, all of that, there are answers to that, and the last one about but I don't see why if you're part of this Enlightenment movement, I don't know why you're going for those particular hadiths to make. The Muslims have answered all of these, and the answers,
but it's true.
You do not want to provide the evidence for the Enlightenment that you're presumably trying to promote. And the one about 6 and 9 in Sahih Muslim, it's 10 to 11. So and also the scholars have said that if something clashes with Quran, we throw it to the wall. That's what the earliest scholars said. Now you bring up Bukhari. A lot of people have questioned some of those hadiths. Even the Salafi scholars, that there are things in Bukhari that they have questions. There is no Muslim scholar that blindly accepts every single thing found in Bukhari. Also, you said the Quran says accept child marriage. You're referring to a verse in which they said if you're divorcing your wife, you have to give them time to 3 months at least in your home for them to see if they're pregnant.
Hey, I got a question. Eating. This is from a super chat from someone who's asking you, so you'll get time to talk. Mitch Mazerol, I always mess your last name up, bro. Thank you for the super chat. Eating. Which hadiths are false? Any of them? If so, who specifically makes that authoritative doctrinal determination? Please answer in the chat when you're done with Armin in the stream, or actually, I'll just go ahead and say, can you answer this now in light of, because this is relevant. This is relevant to what Armin's saying. Like,
well, he doesn't know. He seems to think like things in Bukhari could be authentic or not. He seems like he doesn't understand what's sahih, which hadiths are sahih, which hadiths are zaif, which hadiths are kind of somewhere in between. Because when he says Bukhari, even Salafis question Bukhari. Well, no, because Bukhari has a collection of hadiths that he himself labeled as not authoritative. So obviously the Salafis are going to be like, well, obviously these are not authoritative. If Imam Bukhari himself has identified them as not authoritative, but they don't question the hadith that is authoritative. And I don't know, like, okay, even if you are a full-on Quranist and you want to question all of hadith, that's fine. You basically destroyed 95% of Islam. I like this destroying 95% of Islam. I encourage you to do that. But just realize that what you're left with is something that is not recognizable as Islam. Like 95% of Islamic teachings are now questionable if you want to question Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Again, I said Sahih Bukhari, not everything that is in Bukhari. Yes, Bukhari himself has a list of things that are not authoritative. But with that Quranic verse that you're mentioning, that, you know, if you want to question hadith, fine. If you want to be a full-on Quranist, be a full-on Quranist. That specific Quran verse is referring to how to divorce those wives that haven't had their periods yet. I don't know how much more clear it could get than that. When you say, why am I saying these things? Am I not trying to encourage enlightenment? Yes, enlightenment involves getting rid of Islam. So by telling the truth about Islam and making less people be Muslim, that is enlightenment. Okay, so I don't know what your version of enlightenment is. Less people being Muslim is my version of enlightenment. Okay,
right,
or Christian.
Let eating get your response, and then I got to drop you. I got someone down in the chat. Hopefully, we can continue this. But yeah, please, eating.
Now he said such a lot. Now your Muslim enlightenment then is really actually to fight Islam, to befriend Muslims, and then to force them out, convince them to leave it, not to enlighten Islam. Like, not
force.
No, I said convince. I changed it.
Yeah.
Also, you are misreading the Quranic verse where it says you can marry women without girls. You're intentionally misreading it. You know that the scholars have said there are women, maybe you don't know because you're not God, but God knows. There are women who start their menses late in life. There are women who have irregular periods. There are women who don't have periods at all. So just in case they do have pregnancies, you still allow women, if they have their pregnancies, if they have their periods, or if they have not. That's what the Quranic verse is saying. Even if they've had
no serious Arabic reader interprets the Quran the way you do.
Okay, can I just finish? Let me finish, okay. And then you can. I'm sure after I leave, you're going to have a long saying. I don't know anything, but anyway, let me just finish. So, the Quranic verse there, the scholars have given their commentaries. They've said that this applies to women in general. Now, you might say, okay, you can marry a child because only children, girls don't have periods. But this is to ensure that if a girl has, or a woman has and the word in the verse is women, not girls. There's a separate word in Quran in Arabic for girls, and the word is I think nisa, meaning women. Not and if the Quran meant girls, they would have used a different word. So these are women who are fully matured. Now on your issue, the Hadith literature, by the classical scholars, is considered good enough. The Quran is considered certain. So there is isnad, the chain of narration. If a chain of narration, if the people are trustworthy, it is considered sahih. It is considered authentic. Doesn't mean that everything in the content can be accepted. There are some.
Look, man. Look, close this sentence out. I've got to let you go. I've got another person waiting, please.
Okay. The classical scholars, we do not throw out authentic chains, but we don't act the classical scholars like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, and those two especially, they were the earliest. They said you do not take hadith as fiqh. Fiqh is your legislation. You must be more
10 seconds, please.
Selective than that. And also, the hadith must not conflict with the Quran, must not conflict with reason, must not conflict with an established Islamic principle.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you, man. I got to let you go. I dropped you out of the chat. Armin, if you want to respond real quick before we bring on another gentleman.
He keeps saying scholars say something else, but if you look at every single tafsir of this Quranic verse, the scholar do not agree with his interpretation for the past 1,200 years. Neither anybody that understands classic Arabic. There are certain new scholars in the modern era who are trying to reinterpret Quran in a way that is more acceptable with our modern morality, because how embarrassing Islam and the Quran is based on our modern standards, and they're trying to come up with a way that is more acceptable to a more civilized society. And that's because the civilized society has better moral standards than Islamic standards, and relative to that, Islam is so embarrassed that it's trying to act like if it was saying something else. So there's some scholars are trying to attempt to come up with different interpretation that disagrees with 1,200 years worth of scholarship, and they're failing to do so because it's so obvious what these verses mean. Also, it said when he says women, not girls, well, I mean, according to Islam, if you can have sex with it, it's a woman. So you might think it's another woman, you might think it's a girl. Islam thinks it's a woman because you can have sex with it, right? So that's just Islamic standards, okay? So you think like, oh, this is obviously a girl. Well, the Quran disagrees with you. When it comes to the Hadith, and you're saying like, well, if it disagrees with the Quran, it shouldn't be accepted. Well, Sahih Imam Bukhari agrees with you, and Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim and many other Islamic scholars think that, you know, these hadiths that are authentic under Sahih Bukhari, they don't conflict with the Quran. That's why they're called Sahih. That's why they're called Sahih Bukhari, because they found nothing in them that contradicts the Quran. They don't think child marriage contradicts the Quran, and that's why they labeled it as Sahih. So I don't know what that argument is.
Thank you. I appreciate you eating for joining me, man. He, even if I disagree with him, at the end of the day, he is reasonably respectful on the show. So that's one thing he's got going for him, and I appreciate that. I'll see you around for sure. Star Wars fan, welcome to Myth Vision. I hope you're a Muslim, my friend.
May the Force be with you.
Well, that's shirk. That's shirk. Definitely not Islamic.
They did. They did. Trolled me, man. They trolled me.
That was the greatest sin. That is the greatest sin in Islam, by the way.
Well, this was quite interesting. These conversations were, you know, one of the things we were talking before the show, and you're like, I can go into this, and we could really go on in a long conversation about it. But you did say something earlier in the conversation that I thought was notable. You said there are contradictions in the Quran. And I have not studied it, right? Like I have not read the Quran. I'm getting literature right now, and I have PhDs that I'm in conversation with. And of course, I'm going to get hate from some of the more fundamentalists who are in Islam because I bring ex-Muslims on. Until I have PhDs on, or until I somehow bring on someone that they like, I'm going to get that kind of criticism. But can you do you have any examples you could give of that?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one is the mere mention of every single time that the God says that he's the most loving and the most merciful, right? Rahman Rahim, okay? While also threatening you with eternal torture for something that he apparently forced upon you, okay? Like the Quran constantly says that us, you know, kafirun, the unbelievers, he made us this way. He mentions in the Quran that we are doomed to be kafir, like there's no hope for us, okay? Mentions it in the Quran. And he also says that we are destined to burn in hell for eternity. And he is very vivid about the type of torture that we're going to be facing in hell. We are going to have angels smashing our faces, and it's constantly going to grow back. We're going to have our skin burn off and constantly grow back and burn again. We're going to have molten lead pour down our throat for something he did to us. Like everything is in his control. He predetermined it, and he's going to do all of that to us. And then he dares call himself the most loving and the most merciful. Like you don't get a better contract. Like what is the meaning of loving and merciful? Like how could you get more contradictory than this, right? I mean, there's a lot of other contradictions with science, with like, I mean, you know, like with itself. But this is the most annoying one in the Quran because it's the most repetitive one. The Quran is obsessed with telling you how doomed the unbelievers are and how screwed they are and what God's plan is for them. It's obsessed with it. Like the word kafirun is probably one of the words that is constantly repeated more than anything else in the Quran. One of them, like it was like, if you start reading it, you start like, oh my God, you're obsessed with us, Allah. Like this is like an ex-girlfriend that is like completely can't get his mind off of you. Okay, like kafirun, 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 kafirun. And the second thing he's obsessed with, the Quran is how loving God is. Like, this is the entire theme of the Quran. I'm going to screw up the kafirun. I'm going to torture them. I'm going to put like hot rods up their ass. And also, am I not loving? Am I not caring? Okay. So this
is like the stand-up comedian George Carlin when he's like, and I love you and I want good for you and you're going to go to heaven. Oh, no. He does it negative. He's like, I'm going to burn you and cook you and destroy you and this and that. But I love you. And it's like,
right.
That's kind of that's a different worldview's God. But nonetheless, I think at least there's some honesty in the sense that they're like way more blunt and saying the unbeliever, you're damned. Like it seems, and I'm not talking about the books, because if you go in the Bible, you can find the same stuff. Like God doesn't hate anyone. In the New Testament, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. And then in that same context, he prepares all of these people for destruction. This is Romans 9 with Paul. So I use this analogy because I want people to see how much in common to the Abrahamic traditions prior to Islam, this stuff comes straight out of this. You know, you look at that, Paul's like he says, you might say, well, how does he find fault? If he's making us this way, how can he blame you? And he's like, who are you, oh man, to answer back to God? You know, like, answer the super chat, please. Answer the super chat. Okay. Did you see the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me see. Please define mature age of marriage consent within Islam. How old is that? Demand the number. Well, okay, so for girls or for boys? And
either
according
both.
to who? Okay, so what we learned in our Islamic school in Iran was that age for girls is 9, for boys is 15. Okay, when it comes to age of consent, I mean, here's the thing. Consent is not really much of an issue. Like a lot of people like, oh, they have to consent. Aisha was never asked if she wants to marry Muhammad. Like this was an agreement between Abu Bakr and Muhammad. Aisha's consent was never part of the equation. So this is not about consent. This is not about the consent of the woman. This is the consent needs to come from the father. The daughter doesn't have much of a choice unless you're Khadija and you're like rich businesswoman or something like that, right? But most of the time, the consent comes from the father. So the maturity of age is not like Islam doesn't tell you here's the age of maturity. What you understand from the hadith is like Muhammad fucked a 9-year-old apparently, so that must be the age of maturity. Like it's not like it doesn't tell you like, hey, here's the age of maturity. Like, well, when did Muhammad have sex with his wife? That must be it. So that they just come up with a conclusion based on that.
Interesting. We have someone in the chat. Did you want to ask me the question about the Bible, or did you want to go ahead and get to the caller?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you're the ex-Christian, so remind me if I'm wrong about this. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. But the Bible also tells you that there's going to be worms eating on your eyes for eternity, don't you? Like that's I think very descriptive, and that's the New Testament, I think. Yeah.
I think there's something of a reference in Revelation about the worm that never dies. Yeah, there's a worm
and
that
keeps
never
eating
dies.
On your eye. Yeah.
I don't know the eye specifically. Either way, it's an ugly picture. No matter how you put it.
I think Jesus told you to like if you in the New Testament it mentions that if your eyes like makes you lust and it's better to pluck it out because if you don't in hell there's going to be worms eating on it for eternity.
Yeah.
So like okay, that's the insane thing to say. Like that's like not what you expect to hear from this loving hippy dippy Jesus that everybody tells us that, oh no, it's not Jesus, it's just the Christians that are bad. Like no, that sounds like somebody who's insane. That sounds
Well, welcome Abdul. I hope you're Muslim, my friend. Welcome to Myth Vision.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I am Muslim. I tuned in a while ago, so I'm not sure. I know you guys are talking about morality, but I just want to know from what angle you're addressing this. Like, is it like, are you philosophically critiquing Islam, as in like, these are, objectively horrific things about, Islam that Islam teaches, therefore Islam is false, or is it just that Islam isn't compatible with modern society? So is it a philosophical claim that
I think
Islam is false because of this, or is it that we don't like Islam because Islam is not compatible with our modern sensibilities? I think those are two different discussions.
I want to say real quick, and Armin, I know you have a response here. I just want to say that initially the conversation of morality actually got brought up as a question at Armin, and it wasn't even actually a morality issue specifically dealing with the Quran or Hadith or Islam and whatnot. But of course, a lot of moral things get brought up throughout this conversation. So you're right to bring this up. Armin, how would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, so if you define morality as whatever increases happiness and reduces misery, by that definition, Islam was immoral all the time, not just based on our modern sensibilities, right? Like whatever increases, whatever values that might increase misery in the society rather than encouraging happiness and stability, that is harmful to most people. That is based on my stand, based on how I define good. That's not just bad now. That was also bad back then. Like the fact that, for example, Islam teaches you that you should beat your wife if she's being disobedient. That is not just bad because of our recent understanding that it's bad. That was always bad. Does that make sense, Abdul? Like at least you see my perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess the question I have is like, by whose definition of harmful? Because you're saying that if something makes you happy or something makes you sad or something is harmful. So I don't know if you want to take it down this philosophical line, because I know that's a usual place theists normally do go to, but sometimes I get that, this isn't the argument you're trying to make. So I don't have to tell you, hey, give me a foundation for your morality before you critique Islamic morality. But then if you are going down that path, I would ask, because you're saying we know it does not lead to happiness, or it does lead to harm. So do you know where the philosophical discussion goes here about the subjectivity of these terms you're using?
Okay, no, it's not subjective. The goal is subjective, but the methodology is not subjective. Okay, so it's not a question of who decides who decides what is like moral or not. Is what, like we're talking about what definition, right? So definitions are not set in stone. We could pick a definition that gives us the best utility, right? So this is not like there's nowhere in nature that there's no definition of morality in nature, okay? Words are things that we come up with, like definitions of words is something that we agree upon, and we try to come up with an agreement of the definition that serves the best interest, okay? And we think like the best so you could disagree with this definition and we could use a different word, but when I say morality, I'm talking about what increases, and this is not who decides this is what the definition is, okay? It's the question of what, not rather than who. We're talking about not that when you say, and you didn't understand what definition was. It's not about what makes me happy or you happy or sad or sad. This is about the entire level of utility, the level of misery and happiness in the entire population. It's not about in a certain individual's happiness or sadness, okay? We're trying to come up with a method, with some codes or some standards or some ethics, guides to life, and we're trying to come up with standards that are more likely to increase the level of utility in the entire population, right? And that's how we try to define morality, because that definition of morality will encourage more happiness and reduces misery. Does that make? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, it does. So you can say that we have a subjective goal, and we might have an objective means to get at that goal. That's fine. But I mean,
perfect. You got it, Abdul. You got it. You got it.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. The goal is still subjective, as in the goal that we set is initially subjective. I can agree that it's always going to be objective from certain aspects. Like, for example, if we want to be healthy, right, then there is an objective means to be healthy, right? And maybe we should refer to doctors and nutritionists and stuff like that. But then I think it's much broader than that, because you're talking maybe in the context of some form of utilitarianism, because you're talking about the happiness of society. So maybe it's the greater good for the most amount of people. And by the greater good, I mean, I just want to know how you're defining that objective. Is it in terms of survivability, that we're going to reproduce and just continue living? Or is it like a psychological state of happiness?
First of all, I want to acknowledge of how you completely understood, like you understand what we're talking about, and that's so amazing. Okay, so yes, we have a subjective goal, but how given that goal, there's an objective ways that are better at achieving that goal and objectively worse way at achieving that goal. So you completely got it, and your example was perfect. Like, if we have a goal of being healthier, there are objective ways of doing that better and objective ways of not doing that very well, right? But then who decide? Like, then you can be like, well, why should that be our goal? And that's a different discussion, right? But what is that goal? Your question is, what is that goal? Is it survival? No, it's actually like well-being. You know what I mean? Like there are different ways of measuring it. There are better ways of measuring it and bad ways of measuring it. And I acknowledge that we don't have perfect ways of measuring it, but we have some sense of measuring it. Like, there are some obvious things that we know people prefer, and some obvious things that we know people don't prefer. We do know people do prefer comfort. People do prefer stability. People do prefer not being hungry. People do prefer having access to healthcare. We do know people prefer not being poor. We do know that people prefer having a community. We do know people prefer having purpose, meaning, a sense of awe, a sense of belonging. There are many things that we know that could give us a general direction of what it looks like if we are moving in the right direction, that a society is happier and more well off. Again, it's going to be impossible for us to calculate this accurately, very accurately, but we have enough of a sense to at least know enough of an understanding of what creates happiness to be able to judge if we are moving in the right direction or in the wrong direction. Does that make sense, Abdul?
Yeah. Yes. But like the tools you use in order to determine what path we're going to take is probably going to like differ drastically from time to time. So you said earlier that you're concerned
improve drastic.
Yes.
So I
mean, or like it can go in the other direction. It can deteriorate because, like, you know, we can basically like go through a nuclear war or something that's going to just throw us back to the Stone Age, and then we're going to have to start over. But then, see, the point is, I think that's not the main point. The main point is, you said you were concerned with the happiness of the collective, not the individual. So let's say there was a situation where, and I think this has happened, the happiness of the collective is significantly increased and even dependent on something like slavery, where the collective won't be enslaved, but part of the collective will be. So is that?
Can I give you a famous? Well, no. Well, I actually will tell you why it's not. Okay. There's a famous example that highlights this problem that a lot of people have with utilitarianism, right? For example, they say, what if torturing one child would make the entire society happier, right? And should we, like, let's say you just need one child and we will torture this, and this sacrifice will guarantee everyone else's happiness. Based on a utilitarian calculation, then we should do this because this is, there's a net benefit, okay? I would argue the fact that this is the example that people use against utilitarianism as a slam dunk against utilitarianism shows that it doesn't work. Because of the mere fact that most people are uncomfortable with this situation and would say, like, no, we shouldn't do this. That means that the misery that people would get from sacrificing a child like that is actually higher than whatever utility they could imagine. Like, when you are doing the calculation, you have to include in the calculation the fact that most people are considering this unacceptable, right?
Yes, you're right. You're right, but you're not keeping in mind the fact that if we're going to talk about slavery in the past, and I'm not specifically talking.
Oh, you got cut. This is a good conversation. Abdullah is very smart.
During Pat, can you hear
me? Sorry, you were cut out.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got a call. So if you're talking about slavery in the past, the thing, and I'm not specifically talking about Islam, what I'm saying is you're saying that the collective might be, psychologically unsatisfied or, unhappy by the fact that a baby is killed. But that's the problem. So in the past, there were societies that were perfectly fine with slavery. So if you're talking about the subjective happiness of the collective, I mean, by your own standards, in order to be consistent, you would have to say that, yes, it would be justified.
Right. So here's the thing. We are, as part of the collective that doesn't like slavery and doesn't also like child torture, right? So what we are trying to do, like, so for example, then when I say, like, we should, like, opt for the highest amount of utility, the highest amount of happiness, and people could say, like, well, what if most people were psychopaths and they didn't care about other people's happiness, right? Well, as the non-psychopaths and as the people who right now do not enjoy child torture and do not want slavery, we are lucky that we are in the majority. Like, it's true, like, that those people exist, right? But we are trying to win against them, right? And we are winning.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Well, but you see, the thing is here, so that's okay. But still, by your own standards, you would have to define the fact that, you know, slavery existed in the past. That's something that is not immoral or even moral, because of the fact that for them, the collective didn't really care about that, and they were collectively happy. The point is that you're basing your fundamental standard for what is moral or immoral on the psychological state of the collective. So if, for example, during the time of like the Second World War and Hitler, the collective of German society was okay with what was happening, then by your standards, nothing really wrong was happening. Sure, you can say that from your subjective perspective right now. Yes, you want to fight against that because you just don't prefer that, because right now what makes the collective happy is something else. Right. But to be consistent, you'll have to say that right now it's basically a relativist view of morality, where right now this is the moral thing, and back then that was the moral thing.
Right. So there's different ways of addressing this. One way has been, some people have come up with a superior utilitarian method, where it's an adjusted utilitarian method, right? Where they say, like, after certain principles, then we start applying utilitarianism, right? Like, they're saying, like, okay, basic human rights should be applied, and then after basic human rights, then we apply utilitarianism. So that's one thing. Okay. Another way to address this is that for me to address, like, to also say, like, there's a level of pain, okay, that the negative utility on our calculation should be much higher than mere conveniences that people are going to have in life, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you get to have apple juice instead of water, and the cost of it is slavery or child torture or something like that, then your calculation of the misery associated with those pains should be significantly higher than the small conveniences that people are getting from these mild pleasures. Okay, that's another way to be practiced.
Yeah, but
last way. No, let me finish.
We have a guy in the bottom of the chat, just so you know, Armin. So we have to wrap this one.
Okay, so I have my own method of addressing this. However, I must say, if you want to, let me just say, like, maybe if you're not satisfied with any of this, what I could say is that utilitarianism could have its flaws, but it's the best we have. You know what I mean? Like, everything that you use to come up with standards, it's going to have its issues, but it's better than the God command, like, you know, argument. Like, that is, like, very faulty. Being a principle, like somebody that only agrees with principles, that has a lot of flaws in it. This is just the least faulty way. And if we find other things that are not acceptable and that we don't like, we could make adjustments to it. But it's just the best base to start with to use as a moral standard. It might have its flaws.
Say your final words on this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and you see, there was a comment on the screen about moral realism, right? And the thing is, I'm not talking to a moral realist, right? So if you were a moral realist, I think it would be a very different discussion. I'm talking to a moral relativist, but I see a lot of inconsistency going on here. So on the one hand, we agree that the foundation is subjective, and the path we take from that subjective foundation to achieving our subjective goal is going to be objective. But right now, in order to get out of the conundrum, you're trying to say that no, let's put an objective foundation where at least we have basic human rights. Of course, there are questions about what basic human rights are going to be defined as, but forget about
that's not my
that.
solution.
Let me just finish off. The point is, what I'm saying is that's inconsistent with your initial stance that the foundation is subjective and the goal, the way we achieve it, is objective. But then you're saying,
Abdul, that's not my stance. Abdul, that was not my stance.
I know. I'm responding to the point you made. So what I'm basically saying here is this, and because somebody's waiting, sadly, but we can have this discussion some other time. What I'm saying here is this. I'm saying most of the time, these discussions about morality and Islam and theism in general, they happen in a very unorganized way. So normally we don't know whether the person is trying to say this is immoral, therefore this worldview is false, or this is immoral, therefore we don't like this worldview and let's fight it. You can choose either path. But if you're trying to make a philosophical claim that the immoral aspects from your perspective of Islamic teachings do make it false, then you're going to have to rely on some kind of objective foundation, because as a relativist or subjectivist, you can't really make that claim, because by definition, your subjective view on what should be right or wrong isn't the objective standard by your own standard. But if you're saying it's something we don't like, then that can be a different discussion. And I think there are a lot of ways that Muslims do take, like I think one of the problems with your approach, and sorry, this is the last thing I'm going to say, one of the problems I see with this approach is that you're talking to people who are like the brother who was right before me, who are saying, no, we don't like pedophilia, no, we don't like child abuse, but you're trying to impose your narrative on him as if that's a good thing. So let's assume Hinduism, something I don't agree with, had this very immoral teaching. If I was discussing it with them from an instrumentalist perspective, in the sense that, like, how are we going to coexist? And they say, no, we don't believe in, let's say, racism. And I try to say that, no, by right, you are bound by this in your books. So I try to impose on the moderate Hindu, from my perspective, that I want to coexist with, a reading that I don't like. I think that's completely misplaced. So unless we're having a philosophical discussion about what ought to be, which you can't have that discussion because you don't have an objective foundation, if we're having a pragmatic discussion, I don't think you should impose your view on the people who adhere to a worldview that you find flawed in the first place. Just accept their moderate interpretation of the verses, which I'm not saying is wrong, by the way.
Abdul, you got to wrap it up, man. I'm going to go ahead and
Abdul, I need to be able to respond to all of this.
What I'm saying is, if you're approaching it from a pragmatic perspective, it really does not make sense to say, hey, listen, no, you should go kill people if you are a true adherent of your worldview. That doesn't make sense to me, unless it's in a philosophical discussion.
I have heard that many times.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna have to.
I have heard that many times. Yeah, let me address all of that. Okay, so first of all, it was not my argument that my adjustment to like the problems with utilitarianism was not to introduce like some base of human rights and then apply utilitarianism after that. I was just acknowledging that the issues that he had with utilitarianism is something that a lot of people had, and there was many people responding to that in many different ways. When it comes to the issues with slavery and the issues with, I don't know, like like maybe having, what if like, oh, if it's based on what people want, then what about sociopaths? Like, well, we don't live in that world right now, right? Like maybe if you lived in a world where most people accepted slavery, or most people were psychopaths, then these calculations wouldn't work. So, but luckily we have managed to, our side of the people, we have the upper hand. So utilitarianism works right now as a way for us to measure what's right and what's beneficial for society and move things forward, right? In the best way possible. So we have won, and fortunately for psychopaths, even if they don't care about other people, our way of coming up with standards, it makes the world a better place, including people who don't care about other people. Like, this is just the best way to run a society, to come up with these standards based on utilitarianism is the best way to, like, we have seen that societies run better if standards are come up based on these models for everybody, including people who might want slavery, who might want to just murder people randomly, even if their brain doesn't operate like ours. We have shown that these standards objectively make societies better. Like, we have enough data to show that these standards are superior. So we have data to show that this works, right? So, and this is objective. This is not subjective. We could show. So your personal preferences, if you don't care about other people's happiness, it doesn't negate the fact that these make societies run better. These standards, okay? And another thing, even if you think like utilitarianism is not a perfect way to come up with what is moral and what is not moral, we don't need absolute perfection to be able to at least make judgments about certain things, right? So you could come up with some scenarios where your standard seems to have some weaknesses. Like, so for example, if you come up with the example I said, like, what if you have one child, and if you torture that child, all of a sudden everything in society is what utilitarian seems to be flawed in this situation, right? It doesn't work here. And we could address that, like, is it flawed? Can we fix it? Can we come up with a better model that this doesn't happen? Yeah, there might be some fringe issues that utilitarianism maybe be struggling with, but when it comes to obvious things, for example, that obvious harmful ideas like child marriage in Islam, or like wife beating in Islam, or slavery in Islam, like, those are not the fringe examples that utilitarianism struggles with. Any person on the right mind could see like these are horrible values. These are not values that make society better off. So yes, you can't come up with some weird fringe examples where utilitarianism might struggle, but for most things, utilitarianism, again, like we're not religious. We don't have a God. We don't have to act like what we have is perfect, that it measures things perfectly and the answers are perfect. We know that the systems that we have are flawed. They're just the best we have. And because they're not divine, they're going to have issues. Okay, they're going to have issues. We don't believe in anything divine, so we don't believe in anything perfect. Even though they're flawed, we work with what we have. So for last point he brought about, I don't impose my reading on anybody. Like you can't impose your reading on other people. I'm just talking to people. I don't have a gun on anyone's head. If somebody disagrees with me, they're not forced to accept my understanding of the Quran. They don't have to accept my understanding of the Bible. They don't have to accept my understanding of Hinduism. I don't understand where this imposing comes from. I'm just talking. If you don't like it, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just trying to convince you. There's no imposition happening here. So I don't know what this idea of imposing comes from. I don't understand it.
I think what he's trying to say, if I can just clarify what I think, and I don't want to straw man, he's trying to say, for example, eating was on, and he was saying, no, I don't accept that. That's not true. And you were like, look, if you're getting rid of all the hadith technically, or you're picking and choosing the positive ones, right, you're kind of creating your own Islam. You're not really going with what all of Islam practically is teaching about this, if that makes sense.
No, I think what he's trying to say, I'm going to replace impose with convince to make his argument better. Even though Abdul was fantastic, okay? I know Abdul might disagree with me. I really like arguing with people like Abdul because he gets what we're at least saying, and the arguments seem a lot more. The argument is very intelligent. He's a very intelligent person, right? I enjoy talking to him, right? Even if we disagree. But his last point would have been better if he said, instead of saying when you're trying to impose your reading, if you said if you're trying to convince Muslims, like why are you trying to convince Muslims that these horrible and understand? Like if you like. Let's say, for example, your understanding of this Quranic verse is that this Quranic verse is saying, beat your wife. But this moderate Muslim is like, I don't think that's what it means, right? So wouldn't it be against, like, why would you try to convince him that this Bible verse, like, so I'm saying convince rather than impose, because that would be more, that would make more sense. Why would you try to convince this Muslim that this Quranic verse is actually teaching you wife beating? Wouldn't you want to discourage people, for example, to beat their wife? So why would you encourage them to actually think that this Quranic verse is saying wife beating? There are many reasons. First of all, because I actually give Muslims a lot more credit than many Muslims do, because a lot of Muslims tell me like, no, don't tell them that this is wife beating, because if you tell them that this is wife beating, they're going to beat their wife. I don't think they're going to beat their wife. Okay, I think most Muslims are really decent human beings that don't want to beat their wives. Like that they will either ignore the Quranic verse or try to come up with gymnastic arguments for why it means something else, or try to be like, just come up like, or, have this like struggle in their mind, or become ex-Muslim or something like that. Okay. Most Muslims are better than Islam. Most Christians are better than Christianity. Most Hindus are better than Hinduism. Like, so I give Muslims a lot of credit. I don't think like, if you convince Muslims, if I tell them, no, this actually means that, I don't think any Muslim is going to be like, oh, I don't really want to beat my wife, but I guess I have to do though. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's what happens, right? But I think like the problem is not when it comes to these teachings, what we're trying to do is not to just convince you that what this Quran verse means, what this interpretation is. The problem is at the core. The problem is that with faith, with revelation, with religion, right? So I think the most likely scenario, if you realize that most Muslims, just like most other people, are decent human beings, if you convince them that this Quran verse is actually teaching you to beat your wife, the natural conclusion from that is not, okay, I need to beat my wife. The natural conclusion, if you actually manage to convince a Muslim that this is this, the natural conclusion from that is that I need to leave this religion, or at least take it less seriously, or at least
your hope too. That's your hope, is that they actually evaluate what.
That's what happens. No, but that's what happens, right? When go look at people, when you convince them, if they get more and more convinced that this Quranic verse is teaching you to beat your wife, it's very unlikely. Like, okay, I don't want to beat my wife, now I'm going to beat my wife. They are going to be like, maybe this is not. Even if they don't leave Islam, they're going to be like, maybe this is not a religion from God. Like just maybe I was 100% short of Islam. Now I'm like 99.9% short of Islam. That's progress. That's fantastic. Just having a little seed of doubt in there. Okay. See, the problem with religion is not that, oh, it has bad conclusion. The problem is the methodology at which it comes with conclusions, right? So we don't want like, oh, keep your faith, keep your revelation. However, we hope that you come up with some more peaceful, loving, less violent conclusions. No, this thing is rotten to the core. If you have, again, this goes back to my story. If you have bad premises, if you have a faulty methodology of coming up with a conclusion, you're going to get bad conclusions. The only way you get from bad premises to good conclusions, if you encourage bad logic. If you have bad premises, the only way for you to get to good conclusion is to encourage bad analysis, bad logic. Do you want to encourage bad logic? No. So you have to get rid of the premises, not try to remove these. Oh, let me remove these harmful fairy tales and maybe give you some less harmful fairy tales. That's not how you're selling people lies. You're like, oh, let me remove these harmful lies. Like,
I'd like to give you an example and get the super chat here, and then we got some people in the chat. In Christianity, I know a lot of people who, when they hear me be critical of the New Testament or I'm digging into the Bible, they always respond, "That's esoteric. Hell isn't a place after you die. It's this, it's the winter solstice, or it's this internal struggle of like whatever." Right? They redefine the post-mortem eternal punishment of hell to make it something more pleasing and satisfying, so they can keep the book, keep their faith intact in some way, so that they're protecting the ugliness that they're finding coming from this religion. And that's the thing. It's like, sure, I say this pragmatically, like that's a much better way to live than telling people you're going to cook by an all-loving God for eternity if you don't submit and fall into the love of his son and all that kind of stuff. I am with you, though. That my goal is your goal in what you just said. I'm saying, though, pragmatically, I'd much rather, if someone can't get the cognitive dissonance out, I'd rather people be kind and do good things and not beat their wives and not sleep with 9-year-olds or whatever.
That's not why people are kind. People are not kind because their religion is, they have a peaceful interpretation of their religion.
Good point.
People are kind. It works the other way around.
Right.
People are kind. That's why they try to come up with an interpretation, good interpretation of the religion. The kindness comes first. We don't need to give them the comfort if they're already good people. We don't need to give them a comfort of okay, your religion agrees with you, okay? Because by trying to say, well, your religion agrees with you, now we're making the religion live longer. These kind Muslims or kind Christians, they're not all of a sudden going to become unkind if you tell them that what their religion is actually about. They're going to remain kind. They were always kind, okay? Just be honest about what their religion is actually teaching them.
Well said. I agree with you. Stop scamming, man. You rock. Thank you for the super chat. I think a massive apostasy rate will pressure the scholars and people on the Dawa scene to act more tolerant and be slower to advocate things that will disgust many doubting Muslims. What do you think about that comment there? And then we do have someone in the chat.
I think a massive apostasy will pressure the scholars and people on the Dawa scene to act more tolerant. And that's why we should fight that, okay? The religion is dying. This is a defense mechanism, okay? This is a defense mechanism to keep people Muslim, okay? Muslims are already kind. Muslims are already mostly good people. You don't have to worry about most of them becoming radical. That's like, you don't, so that's just a fringe thing. And it is because of Islam. But most people, if you actually show them what their true religion is all about, they're just going to consider leaving it, okay? People's values or Muslims' values, Christians' values, they change, and then their religion changes after. It's not that the religion becomes moderate and then people follow. No, the people are accepting new modern standards, and the religion is like, hey, don't leave us. We're going to adopt to you. It's not the people who are adopting the religion. The religion is like, don't abandon us because we could change with you. If we show people that this religion, the true nature of the religion, these people are just going to move out of the religion because the religion can't follow. So this whole reforming the religion should be abandoned. We shouldn't let people reform the religion. We should encourage people to leave their religion.
Thanks for the comment. I will say this. They can do whatever they want. I'm not going to say shit.
Yeah, encouraging.
Encourage.
Obviously, we're not holding it. We're not holding a gun on anyone.
That's why I said that, because someone might. Hassan, welcome to Myth Vision. Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm not, but I have a question for Armin.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Make it brief, please, because I wanted to try and give Muslims the chance.
Do you think it's possible, Armin, that certain people will become more radicalized because of the things you say? Instead of leaving Islam, they actually learn new things from you and accept them.
Any sentence that starts with "is it possible?" 99% of the answer is usually yes. Okay, because you're asking, "Is it possible?" There are very few things in the world that are not possible. Okay, so yeah, is it possible? Of course, it's possible. What is not possible? It's possible that the entire universe came out of a giant turtle's ass.
So in your eyes, the benefits of people leaving Islam outweighs the benefit of the pain of the...
Yeah, because we have to look at everything we do has everything you do in life, because of the butterfly effect, it will have some positives and some negatives. The best you could do is to see if the positive outweighs the negative. Obviously, everything you do will somehow have some negative effect somewhere. You have to do it. Yeah, go on.
Based on how do you know the percentage of people who leave Islam? Based on what you're saying, the percentage of people who get radicalized.
Well, based on 15 years worth of experience of reaching out to people and talking to them about the religion, and also the results of people thinking about the stats on people's reaction to when they look into their religion and do some research. One of the greatest things that actually encouraged more ex-Muslims was ISIS, right? Like it was the rise of ISIS encouraged a lot of Muslims to actually look into see if these things agree with the religion. And that led to a mass movement in ex-Muslims, because a lot of them were convinced that it does. A lot of Muslims looked into research to see no, this is not Islam. And they went to look into see if it is actually Islam. And they were like, okay, oh shit, it is Islam. And that led to a lot of people becoming ex-Muslim. And also, like, for example, in Iran, after the Islamic theocracy came into power, a lot of people are like, wait, is this Islam? And they look into it and like, they were convinced that this is Islam. So that's why half of the population in the past 40 years has now left Islam. This is the most giant mass exodus of Islam you have ever seen in history. You've seen
so
in
maybe
Iran.
Maybe we should support radicals to kill Islam.
No, it's not. Well, I'm not doing that. That would be. I wouldn't be comfortable with doing that. No, no. I wouldn't like.
I was gonna say thank you for your question. I got two other people down here. We need to get
That was Hassan. That was a really good question. Though,
yeah, really good one.
Oh, thank you, Armin. Thank you. I like your channel. Bye.
Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, we should tell people my channel is our channel is Atheist Republic. So if you're enjoying my rambling, you could get more of that at Atheist Republic. So search for Atheist Republic on YouTube. Yeah.
Hey, I really enjoy it, and this has been fun. It's been obviously illuminating to hear how you respond, and I think it's good that I have you on here talking to Muslims. So, James, where'd you go, man? James was down here in the chat. He popped away. I'm gonna bring Jojo Freelance on in just a second, and James, come pop back on. You got a question, man? So, okay, James just popped on, but I already brought Jojo up. Jojo, you got a question or a comment? I know.
Yes.
Please ask away.
Good day, everyone. I am a deist. Do you think the meaning of life is self-actualization? Even if religion is true, religion has subjective morality. I think we need a secular answer to the philosophical questions, because people follow many philosophies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jojo. Love you, man. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pop you off here. Armin, go ahead and answer, and then James, you're next.
Well, I mean, I don't know what he means by meaning of life, and I also don't know what he exactly means by self-actualization.
Let me ask him, Jojo, what do you mean?
Do you know the pyramid of need?
Yes. You mean Maslow's hierarchy of need?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
That's only what I said.
Oh, so you're talking about the thing at the very top, right? The self-actualization. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. I mean, okay, so I honestly think the meaning of life is what you, Jojo, what you want it to be. Okay, that's what I think. Okay, I think you have the absolute freedom to decide what the meaning of life is, and that's so beautiful. You decide that for yourself, and I decide that for me. And I don't think there's any single answer for what the meaning of life is supposed to be. I think Derek gets to define that for himself. I get to define that for myself, and Jojo gets to define that for himself. And that's so beautiful, because I can't imagine the meaning of life for the three of us to be the same thing, because we're very different people. And isn't that liberating that we all get to pursue the meaning of life that we enjoy, that we think that matches us the best?
Yes.
What do you think?
That's self-actualization.
Okay, well, if that's how you define, well, great. So we agree.
So Armin, I've got one more I got to take. I won't have time to continue. We need to do this again, of course. I try to be fair and allow people to come on and actually conversate with my guests and things like that. I won't always have that situation occur, but I do appreciate you allowing me to bring people on to talk to you. James, what's up, man? You got a question or a comment? James is tired.
James doesn't know how to. James, click on the microphone to unmute yourself.
There you go. What's up, man?
Nope, James.
What happened?
I think he clicked on the studio.
All right, so we're gonna take this from James, and we're gonna wrap things up after that. I really do appreciate it, man. I hope this was fun for you.
This was very fun. Yes,
I enjoyed it.
I very much, I enjoyed everybody that came, but Abdul was fantastic, by the way. I really enjoyed talking to Abdul.
Yeah, Abdul, man, he's in the chat. I can't bring him on right now. We're going to get stuck in a conversation and lost for 20 minutes because I've got to.
You know what? I'm actually just saying that I enjoy talking to Abdul because I'm just trying to convince everybody a lie that I'm not a bigot, because Abdul is a Muslim.
You're an idiot.
I'm just like, just trying to deceive everybody that I'm not a bigot against Muslims, even though my entire family is Muslim. But I'm trying to.
Are they still actively believing and they're within the faith?
Well, most of them, yeah. I'm not going to say which ones are not, because they're still in Iran. I'm not going to out them here live on air.
Oh, wow. Wow. Right. Dang. Okay. Abdul, I will be bringing you on another episode. If we bring Armin on or any other ex-Muslim that wants to have conversations and stuff, this will be something I will do. But James, he said phone died. Okay, so I'm going to ask his question. Ask the guest what's the best argument he has against Islam. If you were to say this is the best thing you can do and to argue against Islam, what would you say?
Lack of evidence for the existence of a God. That's it. It's easy. For every other religion, there's a claim, there's no evidence. You don't need to make an argument. You just have to wait for an argument. And so far, nobody has provided anything. I would take everything. I would take Islam with all its bad, values and all of the horrible teachings. I would accept all of that if you could show me that your Allah is real. I would have to accept all of it. Even if I would just be like, it wouldn't. Like, here's the thing: the problem with Islam is not the problem with Islam. The bad teachings of Islam, all of it will go out the window if you actually show me that Allah is real and the Quran is his book. Like, I can't say like, well, according to me, these teachings are wrong. Well, because that all of that argument would be invalid, because there is an Allah and this is his book. What am I going to say, right? So the main point is that there is no Allah, because if there was, none of the arguments we have against the values of Islam would be relevant. So yeah, where's your proof for Allah? That's it.
Awesome, man. Well, look, James says he totally disagrees. He thinks it's a horrible answer.
Well, he's wrong.
He said, that's a bad answer, man. And James is a good guy, too. He's a Christian, though. So he's been looking into Islam. And that
is why he thinks it's a bad answer, because my answer also destroys his religion. Right. That is why he doesn't like the answer.
So if you put on the Christian cap, pretend for a second here before we wrap up this show, and you put on, let's say you started with Christianity's true, presuppose you already are convinced. What would you, with what you know about Islam, what would you use as an argument?
If I believe he's a Christian, well, Jesus is Lord, therefore Allah cannot be real.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, what evidence? How would you approach this? How would you approach it if you were a Christian? You have to put your Christian cap on, though. You have to.
My Christian cap, like, Jesus has brought the message. He brought the good news. Why are you, like, obviously this is a deceiving religion. Like, it's a stupid. I can't put the Christian hat on because I wouldn't make sense if I put the Christian hat on.
I'm just trying to have you role play here. You never role play with a wife? Come on, man. No,
all right. So here's it. No, I'm actually like, I know, because this is the reason why I know people are trying to get me into a conversation that I'm not getting to, because people are trying to make me refer to the bad teachings of Islam or the bad teachings of Christianity as a way to argue, to show why these religions are not true. And I'm trying to discourage that. I'm trying to tell people that we atheists, we're not making the claim. Okay? You don't need to make an argument against the religion, because they are the people, they are the claim makers. They are the people with the claim. You don't need to make an argument against religion. You have to just wait for their evidence. They're not providing you any good. The best argument against religion is that there's no good argument for religion. That's the best argument there. So don't get into, like, I know it's fun and games to talk about this hadith or that's the Quranic verse and tell people, like, if the discussion is this a good teaching, then I will have that discussion and tell you, no, this is a bad teaching. But if the discussion is Islam true, is Christianity true, then that Islam and Christianity and Hinduism and Judaism and Buddhism, these are claims with no evidence. I'm not going to make an argument. You made the claim. I'm going to sit back and see if you provide me a good argument. That's how it's supposed to be.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our time is up. Armin, thank you, man. You came and hung out with me, enjoyed the conversations with all the Muslims that came on, and some weren't Muslim that just want to talk about why we have a 7-day week. That somehow proves we are subject to his version of a God, which really, I didn't even want to go there right now. This is not the show, but it's just very funny to me. Everyone go down to the chat. There's links to his YouTube channels. Go ahead and plug it if you don't mind for everybody watching.
Yeah, just search for Atheist Republic. Did you fix the channel? Because you linked to my personal channel. It's not that one.
I changed it. I know.
Oh,
I
you did?
Okay. You have a whole bunch at the top, like even T-shirts and all that stuff. I got all that.
No.
It's in there,
did?
though. It's in that list. Yeah. I want people to be able to support you, whatever you do. Yeah.
Can I plug our blasphemous art? Because we do blasphemous art.
Is that part of it in the links? Was that possibly in the link on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, that might have been in the links, but all you need to do is like go to blasphemousart.com. Let me actually show it to you.
Sure.
Can you share the screen? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so if you go to blasphemousart.com, you can see that one of the projects of Atheist Republic is making beautiful blasphemous art. So you can see this is like two lesbian hijabis. One of them is reading the Quran. So you can see the caption explains what you're looking at, but it's obviously censored. So I'm not going to, like, if you click on view uncensored, you're going to see it. You can get all of them for free if you're here, right? But there's the uncensored version of it is for our patrons. But you can see another one around the Kaaba. You see lesbian hijabis. We have one with Lord Rama from Hinduism and Muhammad making out. You can see the uncensored version of that.
Do you get death threats for this, by the way?
Oh, yeah, of course. How could we not? Again, but so this is a Palestinian with an Israeli woman right next to the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Again, the uncensored. And the explanations are all here. And then, we have Mother Kali or Makali, Goddess Kali from Hinduism, dominating Prophet Muhammad in this one. Guys, the uncensored version of these is so beautiful. So go get it. And there's like pages and pages and pages. Like we draw these, we make them available. These are two Hindu goddesses. This is a Japanese goddess. Again, you can see that we love our lesbian hijabis. This one is in a mosque again. That's going to be a constant theme that you're going to get to.
This is a Christian one. He's brave.
What?
Jeez, he's brave.
We have Christian version of it. This one is like each one of them has like a philosophy or a message behind it. You can see that this one. Yeah. And again, Rama and Muhammad keep showing up.
Stop Scamming Man says your YouTube channel, Atheist Republic, is criminally underviewed.
Yeah, because we keep getting strikes. And because one reason is because I keep attacking everybody that shows up, because I keep saying something, at some point everybody gets offended, right? So like Christians get offended, atheists, like I keep calling out our fans, right? Like at one point, like we had so many far-right Hindutva fans because they liked me crapping on Islam, but then I started crapping on Hinduism and they all turned on me. I have like I got more deference from Hindus than I got from Muslims. You know, I've been doing this for 15 years, and the level of threats I got from Hindus has been nothing, has been astronomically higher than what I've got from Muslims. They took because of these. By the way, because a lot of it started because of this art. They have taken us to the Supreme Court in India because of this art. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, our case has been mentioned in the Supreme Court in India. We are. I have three police cases against me in India. I'd be like police filings against me because of this art of Hindu goddesses, right? And our Facebook page has been banned in India, and my personal Facebook page has also been. I think I've been the first personal account that has been banned in the entire country. Like my account is still there because I didn't commit any violations on Facebook, but the government of India has requested Facebook for my personal account to not be viewable in India. That's amazing, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so we have. My Twitter was removed because of the Indian government. My personal Twitter account, Atheist Republic, is still there, but they have come after us. They have come after the Hindutva, have came after my family. They have made pornographic images, deep fake images of my mother, of children in my family. It's been intense. Like a lot of people in my family have it's been so crazy. I've actually had to move twice because of such deference I've got. That was something else. I had the police involved a couple of times because of the deference I've got. But yeah, this is my life for the past decade or so.
Well, if you guys enjoyed what we're doing here, go support Armin. There's already people who said they joined and they like the art already. So let me know when we're done how successful this is, and if people go and check out what you got going on here. But seriously, man, I appreciate you coming on, having these conversations. Obviously, the religious will not like what you're saying or what you're definitely doing here with artwork. But yeah, let's stay in touch. I definitely want to do stuff in the future and constantly have these conversations again. But yeah, man, thank you so much for plugging that and letting everybody know. And stop scamming, man. Thanks for the super chat. So, any final words?
No, guys, come check out Atheist Republic. Thank you again so much, Derek, for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking. I wish I get to talk to you more next time, but yeah. And also, thanks again to Abdul for his amazing questions and for a great challenge. That was an actual genuine challenge. So I enjoyed that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody in the live chat, by the way. You guys
seriously, you guys rock.
And like the video. Like this video, help this channel grow. Like, and subscribe.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All the super chats too that help go a long way to keep me alive and do what I'm doing. I really appreciate you guys. And don't forget, we are Myth Vision.